Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for tuning in today's program. I do want to apologize just before we get started. We actually had a miscommunication between myself and the creator of the channel, and because he's based in Europe and I'm based in the United States, since we had daylight savings time, we're actually an hour off. So I do want to apologize for that, but I also want to thank everyone for sticking around. It really means a lot. And with that, let's open the Epstein files. We have a lot of really interesting stuff to talk about today, mainly between the discussions on most recent agreement between China's Xi and United States' President Donald Trump, as well as the recent news about why the Binance CEO is pushing for countries in Central Asia to use more cryptocurrency and evolve those markets further. And last, we were just going to conclude about the overall sanctions package and essentially the sanctions boomerang and how the country that usually poses these sanctions ends up kind of biting them back at the end of the day. Okay. So, and before we get started, if you guys have any of your own thoughts and comments and questions, please be sure to put them in the comments section. I read through those, and I always like to highlight ones that I think are were really important and interesting, and would be awesome to include in the discussion. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the recent updates on the United States and China trade war. And we saw that for the last few weeks, we had, threats from Besant, from the United States side about raising tariffs to, even 500%, he's even said at some points. And with things sort of really ramping up, this meeting in Busan in South Korea was aimed at sort of decreasing these tensions here. So this is an article that I am showing for the from Reuters that sort of details the sorry about that. That just details what's going on right now. So following the meeting between the United States and China, we saw that they agreed on a number of measures that both found that they were mutually important to address. So, for one thing, the one of the main things from the United States side, China has agreed to suspend the proposed export controls on rare earth minerals for 1 year, and this, along with also agreeing to buy millions of tons, about 25 million tons of soybeans over the next 3 years will also help from the United States side, even though, we also saw that China actually also agreed to be a huge soybean producer from Brazil. China, we talked about it in the last program, but China is by far the biggest importer of soybeans. So, United States and China are one and two respectively. So, this is a way for China to sort of shore up their own soybean supply, but also for them basically conceding the export restrictions was something they were worth doing. And as well for the Trump side, we saw that for one thing, they lowered the exports on we're going to call it fentanyl, the fentanyl tariffs. They're supposedly going to cancel those tariffs that are related to what they'll call fentanyl related products for another year. As well as the Trump administration is also going to halt the tariffs on Chinese maritime and the shipbuilding industries, like adding a lot of fees and that is for Chinese made, ships that was aimed from Trump's side to sort of shore up their own ship industry. But if we sort of understand that that was all that we really got out of this meeting, right? Sort of what am I sort of picturing for both sides here? So, for one thing, China is able to China is essentially able to reshore their soybean supply and also even keep ties as amicable as they can as part of this discussion. And the only thing they really needed to give up were the rare earth restrictions uh, for magnets and all of the dual use that these rare earths really go into, mainly electronics and military grade equipment. But when we see it from the American side, um, they were able to essentially the Trump administration was able to help United States farmers in this case because the ongoing trade war or the tariffs that they placed on Brazil and India as a result has really hurt the United States' agricultural base because they have been known to export many of their agricultural products. So dealing with these tariffs has really hurt the American farmer really, and even Trump so far as to begin to import bovine meat from Argentina in addition to bailing out the Argentine economy when you're putting tariffs on Brazil for that bovine meat, farmers were wanting Trump to do something either about the tariffs or something to make their situation better. So for the United States, they're able to, in a way, make the farmers somewhat pleased about the increased soybean demand, but also to halt the export restrictions on these rare earth minerals. So what do you guys think about who won or I guess sort of who won this side of, I guess we'll call it a trade pause or a trade war pause, and do you imagine that we'll basically have an escalation of these tensions coming soon? Please put your thoughts in the comment section, and if we're looking about this basically from the outside looking in, if I'm another BRICS country, for example, for one thing, I'm pleased that the United States and China are coming at least to amicable terms, not as that they're actually keeping areas of diplomacy open. But another thing that's worth considering is for tariffs on Brazil. I mentioned those tariffs because recently the Senate passed in a 52 to 48 vote that they wanted to remove the tariffs that Trump placed on Brazil. So we can see that this concern about the effect this would have on American farmers was not just felt by Trump, but also by all the senators and the representatives for each state, especially for those that need that agricultural production to sustain their own state economy. So let's just say this passes and Trump vetoes it, and for whatever reason, if Trump vetoes this to cancel this tariff, um, you know, will this have any impact to his own standing? But I think this will also have sort of an impact on his own base. So here I just want to share with you guys the breakdown of how the imports and exports have changed between Brazil and India. And oops, sorry about that, guys. Cool. So here is just a breakdown of how exports from Brazil to the United States has changed that following these tariffs. And you can see that, we exports were only at 3.34 billion as of June of 2025, and this and even as of August, it's dropped nearly a half a billion dollars as of from June to August because of these tariffs. And by Trump keeping these tariffs on and continuing to, um, by trying to sort of rebalance the trade war, as it will, that he wants to do, all it's doing is angering his base. And it's not giving him the outcomes that he wants. So much so that, he has been in a discussion with India too, a trade deal with India to lower the tariffs that he placed on, for one thing, their agriculture because of how important agriculture is for India's economy, but also the uh, the relationship that the United States needs to maintain with India too, because India is, or America's the India's number one exporting location. So we're going to see if this trade war, not just with China, but with BRICS countries really altogether, will continue. And if the Supreme Court has a ruling on how he can enforce these tariffs, as well as if there will be more and more bills passed or requests passed by the Senate to lower these tariffs, this will really affect Donald Trump's calculus and his economic plan moving forward. And I think if anyone had anything else to chime in, um, we can move on to the next part of our story. So please, everyone, if you guys have your opinions about the recent, deal struck between the United States and China, who you guys think at the end of the day will come out on top, but also for when we're talking about other BRICS countries and even just emerging countries in general, how you think they would react to this news. Obviously, you want to have some sort of cautious optimism because you want the two biggest economies cooperating with each other. But simultaneously, we know that, especially under Trump's administration, that things can change on a dime. So we'll see if it lasts. Okay. Okay, great. So I think I'm going to move on to our next story as give me just a sec to load everything up here and drink some water. Drink water, everybody. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our next story, and this is something that has really flown under the radar, not just for economists like myself, but also other governments around the world are not really seeing this seismic shift in cryptocurrency and the digital economy, and we think that we may find the next big target here. So recently, for background, the CEO of Binance, which is a cryptocurrency exchange platform, his name is Changpeng Zhao, and the founder and the former CEO, he was actually recently pardoned by Trump and he was pardoned basically for he originally was serving 4 months in prison that the Biden administration ruled on for sort of this for breaking anti money laundering practices that they thought that Binance was accused of. And this sort of clemency and this pardon by Trump is, I think, both a shift for both the United States' policy in terms of cryptocurrency, but also to understand what Zhao is sort of doing now. So, most recently, this is an article that I'm going to share with you guys here. This is from the Nikkei Asia website. So we could see here that the founder or Zhao was actually just in Kyrgyzstan, and they helped with the government to launch a national stablecoin and a central bank digital currency with Kyrgyzstan. And for those who are unfamiliar, Kyrgyzstan is part of a group of countries, Central Asia, that were originally part of the Soviet Union, and then as part of when the Soviet Union collapsed, they are west of Russia, and they make up. There's not a lot of people in countries like Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, but they are an incredibly important area in region, especially for areas like cryptocurrency, for example. So this establishment of the stablecoin, it is really monumental for Kyrgyzstan because it is something that their own they're trying to build the legislation behind it properly, and it's relatively new for them, so they're sort of building it up as they go. But it's a huge step forward for them because now we can start to really see how it's uh, it's following behind two other really important countries in Central Asia that have already launched these initiatives to streamline public services and enhance the connectivity through cryptocurrency. So here, for Kazakhstan, they have been actively advancing their own digitalization through what they call Digital Kazakhstan, and it aims to have 70% of the digitization of its industrial sector, its financial sector, and its banking sector by 2026, and to have all of its e-government services, 100% of them completely available for their citizens by then. And this digital drive obviously includes developing their cryptocurrency markets, uh, using improving their broadband network and their infrastructure so they can make transferring these digital assets much easier. But even behind Kazakhstan, we have another important country, Uzbekistan in this case, and they have a specific strategy that's called the Digital Uzbekistan 2030 strategy, and it's aimed to double the size of its digital economy by 2026, and doing um, it's trying to mirror a lot of the practices that Kazakhstan and its goals are having, but in showing that they've been able to increase the fiber optic lines, so the cables that actually give us access to the internet and the accesses through that, between 2017 and 2022, the fiber optic lines in the country have expanded 6 times over. And I know what I'm saying right now is it sounds like a lot of gobbledygook, right? Like, who cares about fiber optic lines and connectivity and this infrastructure? What does this have to do with Binance? And what does this have to do with Central Asia moving forward? Well, for one thing, Zhao has seen an incredible opportunity to develop the cryptocurrency sector in these countries alone. So, for BRICS, obviously its neighbors, Russia is included. One thing that they've already done is launch this called the BRICS Pay, which has been talked about many times over, a bunch on our other interviews and recent programs. So I really encourage you guys to check that out if you want a really big deep dive onto what BRICS Pay is and its importance now in this multipolar world here. But BRICS Pay is a digital payment platform that's designed to connect the payment systems across all of the BRICS countries. And that's what's something that's really, really important in this. So imagine the digital payment system for India, PAX, and I think PAX, which is Brazil's digital payment network, which has been incredibly successful. China's developing payment network. It will all be integrated into this BRICS Pay system, so you can pay someone, you know, across continents and even across payment systems. This is a massive BRICS Pay, and the development of the crypto markets here is a huge result of the ongoing weaponization of the SWIFT system, as well as the politicization of areas like energy and critical infrastructure. And so, adding or basically developing a system that could be connected to the BRICS Pay system is something that is incredibly consequential, not just for the countries in Central Asia to make processes faster, but also to reduce the reliance that they have on the United States dollar and the SWIFT system. Kazakhstan is a perfect example of they are balancing the commercial interests that they have and the investments they get from the United States, but also through the interests they have with Russia as well as their other neighbors. This is a very important calculation that Kazakhstan is making, and there's a reason that they've been a partner country rather than a partner country rather than a full member because of the United States' attitude towards BRICS. And Kazakhstan, in this case, is trying to reduce its reliance on the dollar, like all these other countries are, but balancing the interests that they have posed from the United States and other of those countries as well. So what do you guys think about the role of cryptocurrency in Central Asia? Do you think that Binance's founder will be able to really push Kyrgyzstan with this new national digital currency forward? Do you think we can really see a huge transformation in the digitization of Central Asia's economy? Or do you think that there will be a lot of hurdles that these countries really need to face and actually implement and solve before really transforming the way that they are envisioning? I think this is a very interesting uh, sort of an emerging topic because of the United States' attitude towards cryptocurrency, because we can see that there's a lot of speculation that Trump is actively promoting cryptocurrency as much as it is because of him wanting to devalue the debt and devalue the dollar, and is trying to give access to these stable coins and stuff like that as well. But but the development of these cryptocurrency markets will in turn make them a lot less reliant on the dollar and the SWIFT system. Okay. And I think if no one has any thoughts or anything like that, cool. So I think we can move on to our final story of the day. Okay. So before I before I actually move on to our last story of the day, I do want to introduce our statistic of the week. So I just throw the stat into the week that it's just sort of a guess and it's something that's relevant to our final story. But I add it because I think it adds it could add some context and is something that is just um, offhand and I think can be important to know for future discussions. So the stat that I am going to pitch for the day is 3.5 million. So 3.5 million. Obviously, that's a really, really like obscure. That's a very like that could be anything, right? That could be in money. It could be in units. It can be in anything like that. So, 3.5 million is the uh, top end price for the brand new Russian electric vehicle known as the Atom. So recently, we saw a video of Russia's brand new electric vehicle car known as the Atom, and it just came and completed its testing on top of this nuclear uh, icebreaker, and was driving around there to test. But why is the debut of this vehicle so important? For one thing, it is relying, or for one thing, it's capturing a market that, quite frankly, the United States either could have or should have been involved in before the release of what we'll call the atom here. And the second thing is that this so far is using a lot of the Chinese a lot of components that is made from, Chinese manufacturers, specifically because they have already taken the lead and have innovated and invested to come up with the top end components that we're seeing in this Russian car now. And Russia, they've debuted this vehicle that will get into production, but over time we're going to see, like we saw in the EV plant that was recently launched in Brazil, that Russia will steadily take the components from what the Chinese are manufacturing for themselves, or to produce themselves. So right now it has a lot of Chinese inputs, but it's not going to be designed like that. And when we think about this development in, you know EV manufacturing, I want to come back to the recent sanctions. I know I discussed it before starting the first story of the day, but we talked about how the EU has launched these sanctions for, onto the three Russian oil refineries, as well as other like Chinese refineries. But this was mainly another round of sanctions on Russian oil. Yet, oddly enough, one major caveat that we heard about when this was getting released is Germany. So Germany's energy minister said that. So basically, Germany requested that they are not sanctioning Russian oil that is getting imported into Germany. Germany, the one that has been the loudest and most aggressive towards Russia, the one who has been, staunchly declaring he wants this war by 2027 against Russia, the only ones that are that really want this exception, that have voiced it even after launching this package, is Germany, because they know if they cut the taps out, they're in they think their economy's worse now, it's going to be in an absolute free fall. We've seen Germany act as the sick man of Europe. That was sort of the coin. That's like that's basically what they're known for now, because they can't manufacture anything. Um, and it was because they had to rely so much on uh, Russian. They were using really cheap Russian oil to supply their manufacturing, and that's what made their manufacturing so, so important. So the point is that Germany doing this is just a example of these sanctions don't work. And not only do they not work, they know they don't work, and they will go out of their way just to just to punish Russia for their ideological platitudes, for basically taking a stand on what they think is important to their security. And if you want to try to sanction Russian oil, but no one trusts you as a partner, they're not going to enforce it. For one thing, the weaponization of the SWIFT system, and also the fact that these unilateral sanctions are illegal, deemed by the United Nations, right? This has all led to the innovations and the shifts that we're seeing between BRICS Pay, the development of brand new payment systems in digital currency, how countries like India and China have successfully pivoted away from the Europe and the United States towards their region, towards the Eurasian region. because they cannot rely on a trade partner that will put these sanctions on them for no reason. And moreover, this is not even the best example of this. There we talked about the Power of Siberia 2 that was originally designed for Europe. But in actuality, after, the Nord Stream pipeline blew up, I can't imagine by who or why, now China is able to sign a deal and build this pipeline with help of Indian military, making sure that the pipeline is safely installed, running through Mongolia, and able to shore up their own energy security. But for Russia, able to, diversify its energy exports that much better because they cannot rely on the European Union and the United States. The sanctions are not felt by countries like Russia and China. They will hit it in the short term. That much is established. But in the long term, it incentivizes them to build out their own capacity and innovate within their own domestic industries. It's and here is just another example of this when we talk about the uh, the Chips Act that um, pardon me, the Chips Act that Joe Biden signed during his administration, where he planned on um, where he basically said we're not going to send these advanced chips to China for what they call manufacturing concerns. It's kind of ironic that we see, America trying to pull this trick now, considering they've been using this dual good problem to exclude China from acquiring the most advanced semiconductor chips. But because of the innovation and the investment that the Chinese have had since then, they are continuing to develop their own chips and have recently just made this innovation. So we've seen that researchers at the Peking University, they came up with a chip that is able to process up to 1,000 times faster than the most up-to-date NVIDIA chip, which is the H100. So this article here from Live Science goes into a little bit more of this. So essentially, it's performing calculations that it's not using ones and zeros anymore. Now its calculations are using its own physical circuits, which allows it to outperform the most standard chips faster. And what's ironic about this innovation is that this idea was actually something that is it's something that was the idea was actually discovered a lot in the past, but the developers and those who are actually testing the processing capabilities of these chips sort of wrote off this idea that it could actually use that could be useful now. So here it goes into a little bit more of sort of the history of this, but this mechanism that they made in the 1900s that had been built over 2,000 years ago, it's using these interlocking gears to perform these calculations, which goes back to the physical, the how the physical side of the chip itself is able to process it that much faster. So the point is that these sanctions are only going to hurt the country that is imposing them. China has now been able to push this idea of self-sufficiency to the extent that it's not relying on Americans for that much of anything at this point. And we can even look at this quote from, you know, the the CEO of the highest valued company, topping over $5 trillion recently, Nvidia, whose chips are the ones that are sort of the the cream of the crop, as it were. In an interview, he said, we went from 95% market share to 0%. And so I can't imagine any policymaker thinking that's a good idea, and that whatever policy we implemented caused America to lose one of the largest markets in the world. A company that is valued at $5 trillion, he admits that to a country, a market that is 3 times the size of America, if you go out of your way to exclude your most valuable products, of course they're going to innovate. Of course they're going to diversify, what they're getting from you from other more reliable partners. This is just a product of the sanctions. And we are going to see this with Germany and the European Union moving forward. We already know how gas prices have shot up drastically because of this. I think even I don't. I believe if someone has to correct me on this, it's either Latvia or Estonia is passing an additional tax that has part of labeled in the bill the divert from Russian gas bill. So the government wants to thank you for buying more expensive gas from America by making you pay more. That's the sanctions boomerang in a nutshell. And that's why I think it's ridiculous um, that we've gotten to this point, that America thinks that you can use this tool to exclude China or Russia or anyone you don't like out of the market, and come to find out the only one that you're excluding is yourself. So, what do you guys think about the recent developments in the semiconductor sector? I didn't even touch upon the Netherlands seizing a Chinese semiconductor company that was operating in the Netherlands, which was pushed by the United States for security reasons. But it all just goes to show these sanctions are nothing but a boomerang, and the only one it's going to hit is you. Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And if there are, if there's nothing else anyone wants to add, I think I'll close the Epstein files for today. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in today. Again, I'm sorry about the time screw up. It's daylight savings time, so so it's a once a year kind of screw up. So we'll be back here at 1:15 p.m. same time, same place, and I promise the Epstein files won't go away. They won't disappear. We will just bring them back next week. And thank you all so much for tuning in today.